Hey everybody, welcome to the weekly news recap for the 20th to the 26th of January 2025. So, this week, Thursday, Xbox had their developer direct thing. Should probably make sure the microphone is actually working first. It is. Okay, good. Anyway, Xbox had their developer direct thing where they were going to show off 3 games and then a mystery game. And if you've been looking at the screen now, you'll notice that the mystery game was in fact Ninja Gaiden 4. It's been a while since Ninja Gaiden 3. Pretty sure that was in the PS3 360 title. So yeah, it's been a while. And then they had Yaiba Ninja Gaiden or something like that in between. Didn't do particularly great. But anyway, Team Ninja joining Microsoft Publishing. So Microsoft are helping out with the publishing side of things for this. It might be the case that they're doing the publishing outside of Japan, and Koei Tecmo will handle it inside of Japan. Still not entirely clear. Anyway, it's going to be a new protagonist from the Raven clan. It's not the Hayabusa clan. If you're not familiar with the Ninja Gaiden series, which is entirely possible, it's been a while since the last one. It's a pretty hardcore brawling game. It's a very fast-paced, very twitchy, very punishing type of game. So think, you know, the way Dark Souls is kind of slow and plodding, and as long as you're paying attention, you'll be fine. Ninja Gaiden is the complete opposite of that. Ninja Gaiden is, you better be fucking paying attention or you're dead immediately. It's a very quick style of gameplay, but it's very rewarding when you can like really pull it off, but it's pretty hard to get into, I've always found anyway. So this new character, I forget their actual name, I know they're from the Raven clan, that's the only part I picked up. They got 2 different fighting styles. They do have like an instant kill style, which might be a little bit nicer for new players. And then they do have like a dual wielding thing that I think is a bit more heavy on the parrying, which is probably closer to the older Ninja Gaiden games. Ryu Hayabusa is in the game. I think he's playable for a little bit. Probably not the majority of the game, I would think. And more than likely plays exactly the way he used to play. So yeah, we don't know too much about release date. It's this year at some stage, is the plan. I'd imagine it's probably later in the year. But yeah, it does look pretty cool. There's Ryu there, the original protagonist, Ninja Gaidens 1, 2, and 3. All equally fucking really hard games. I think 3 was just kind of bullshit hard, whereas the other 2 were somewhat nice about it, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, that's Ninja Gaiden 4. I don't believe there's a release date or anything for it yet. It's just this year at some point, fall 2025. Or autumn everywhere else in the world. Anyway, moving on. That wasn't the only Ninja Gaiden news, though. Sort of stealth release, very ninja-like, I suppose. Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, which is effectively a Ninja Gaiden 2 remaster, remake type deal. So from what I've seen from gameplay and reading up from people who kind of know the series a bit better than I do, it seems like Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, this one, is sort of a combo of the original Ninja Gaiden 2 and Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma. Not the internet slang Sigma, the Greek letter Sigma. Anyway, Ninja Gaiden as a series was an Xbox 360 exclusive for a long time, and then it was eventually ported to PS3 under the Sigma heading. So it was Ninja Gaiden Sigma, Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma, and so on. And I think 3 ended up being multi-platform, but I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, this is a remake / remaster. It's probably more on the remaster end of things for Ninja Gaiden 2, and it seems to be sort of a combination of changes made in Ninja Gaiden 2 Sigma and the original Ninja Gaiden 2. But that's out now. If you want to play it, I think you can get like a collecting, like a bundle of all 3 of them. I think this one isn't included. I think the bundle is like the HD ports or something like that. Even though it was already HD. Anyway, it's Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, Ninja Gaiden Black 2, I don't know, whatever you want to say it. Anyway. And then the 3 games that we knew they were going to be talking about. So, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 from Sandfall Interactive. This was shown off or announced during Summer Games Fest or Opening Night Live. I'm not sure which one. So this is a Sandfall Interactive are a French developer, but they're kind of taking really old kind of school JRPGs, turn-based RPGs, and kind of injecting a bit more action into them. So the game does sort of mix in between. It is still like a turn-based combat thing, but in between your turn, if you like, or the enemy's turn or what have you, you're still kind of actively engaged. Like you can. This is kind of something that came from some of the newer JRPGs, I think, was that like you can deflect enemy attacks, or you can reduce their damage, or you can do team up counters and stuff like that. So you're not just kind of waiting around for your turn and waiting for the enemy to attack you, kind of thing. On top of that, the trailer itself showed off a bit more of the cast and some additional party members that are not all humans. Some party members like this guy here can transform into other monsters. That's kind of interesting. He's a bit more like a monster collecting character in a way. There also has an old school world map, which is pretty hilarious. It looks great too. Like it looks really good. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of Clair Obscur. It was given a release date. It's April, I think, at some point, which is way sooner than I was expecting. I thought this would be much later in the year. I forget the exact date. I'm just gonna skip ahead and we get the exact date. April 24th. So that should be coming to pretty much everything except the Switch, because I don't think the Switch could handle it, to be honest. And then South of Midnight from Compulsion Games. You might know them better for We Happy Few, which seemed like it was going to be a really interesting game and then very quickly became a not interesting game. Anyway, hopefully South of Midnight will be a little bit different. The trailer starting off showing that it is set in sort of the real world, but then things quickly go awry when there's a storm or a hurricane or some kind of natural disaster, and there's a little bit of Alice in Wonderland where she ends up down the rabbit hole kind of thing. This trailer did show off a little bit more of how the combat works and the sort of gimmick of the game, and it's kind of the thing that your character is a seamstress or a weaver or something like that, and they're using like strands of elemental energy or something to fight opponents and unravel them, as the case may be. Combat seemed a bit... I don't know how to put it. It seemed fine, I guess, is the way to put it. I'm kind of more interested to see how their stop motion animation works, because I've said this before, that stop motion, if you don't do it well in a video game, it ends up looking just like bad frame rate. So it can be, it might be a bit hit or miss for them. I guess we'll see how it works out. Really imaginative, really interesting art direction, really interesting creature designs and stuff like that. And I think it's maybe showing like a little bit more folklore than you don't typically see in Western developed games, I guess. So yeah, I'm kind of more interested in the world's presentation and the kind of art direction of the game, and the combat looks serviceable. It was the part that didn't really blow me away, I guess. The rest of it seemed a lot more interesting. Anyway, somewhat interesting though is that this is also coming out in April. So Xbox is a little bit kind of blowing their load before summer in this case. Also April. So this is the beginning of April. Expedition 33 is the end of April. South of Midnight is Xbox exclusive, Xbox PC. So it's not going to be on PlayStation. Not at launch anyway. Down the line, maybe. We don't know, because Xbox has brought some of their things over. Expedition 33 is a third-party developer, so that will definitely be on PlayStation Day 1. And then the last one is probably the one we knew the least about going in, which was Doom the Dark Ages. We kind of just had a brief idea of what it was. It was going to be a prequel. It's a little bit like a medieval kind of vibe to it. And Doomguy has a shield now, and that's kind of all we knew about it going in. We know a little bit more. He still has a shield. Shield is a very important part of combat. It's kind of responsible for a lot of things like blocking, as you might imagine, parrying. It has its own ranged ability and stuff like that. One thing they mention about how the shield works is it is entirely contextual. So there isn't a separate button to parry, there isn't a separate button to block, there isn't a separate button to throw, and so on and so forth. So it's like, I'm not sure how I feel about that part. The rest of it showing off massive set pieces, new weapons, all the nice things you expect from Doom. they had a kind of interesting explanation or sort of characterization of the old, not the old Doom games, the previous games in this sort of new Doom trilogy, if you like. So the original Doom was meant to be like a run and gun kind of thing, and I think they pulled that off pretty well. And then Doom Eternal, you're meant to be like a fighter jet. That was the way they characterized it, very acrobatic. And to be fair, there's a lot of like parkour shit going on in Doom Eternal. That's probably fair. What they wanted to get to in Doom: The Dark Ages is that basically you're a tank. You're a bit slow, you're a bit plodding, but you just fucking demolish everything you come across pretty much. And that kind of feels more Doom to me than like acrobatic, crazy flying trapeze artist that Doom Eternal was. I know I like Doom Eternal, but it didn't really feel like Doom Guy, if you like. Some of the set pieces they're showing off there, you do have this sort of fighter jet dragon type thing. There's a mech that you're able to pilot at some point. They showed some open areas, some like really big sprawling maps, which is also not really Doom. Doom was really more of a corridor, like really tight corridor shooter, and just really well scripted levels and stuff. So again, that's a little concerning. But it still looks fun, and I think we're probably still going to be good. Interestingly, this is launching on PlayStation, even though id is now and has been for a while now, a Microsoft subsidiary. May 15th for that one. So they've got South of Midnight, beginning of April, and then Doom: The Dark Ages, the middle of May. So the question is, what the fuck do they have for the rest of the year? There's an article on Kotaku that I didn't include in this, but it's basically kind of pointing out that Game Pass is looking pretty good this year, 2025. So you have Doom, you have South of Midnight, Expedition 33 will be on Game Pass, Ninja Gaiden will be on Game Pass. And then there's the games that are sort of, we might see. Fable, supposed to come out this year. Something from Rare that I can't remember. Everwild, potentially, is also coming out this year. A lot of it is potentially coming out, but then the rest of it is kind of... There's some interesting third-party games coming out this year as well that will likely be on Game Pass. So 2024 was a pretty shit year for Xbox, but 2025 looks like it's shaping up to be pretty great. It's also shaping up for Sony to be a bit of a shit year as well. As it goes to Yotai, I think. And since they had to cancel so many of their live services, they didn't have to start them in the first place, but whatever. They don't really have it on the way. So this is Xbox. This is this year, really, if they want it. Even with the Switch 2 coming. We haven't had any announcements of what Nintendo games are coming to Switch 2. Like, whatever that Mario Kart game is, they haven't technically announced it yet, so we don't really know. We assume it's Mario Kart 9 or whatever. That's all we know. Like, maybe there's a new 3D Mario game. Possible. They are definitely developing one. We just don't know if it's going to be a Switch 2 launch title or whatever. Unlikely there'll be a Zelda. It's too soon since Tears of the Kingdom. And too soon since Echoes of Wisdom, so it's probably not. Metroid Prime 4, pretty good candidate. And then, of course, there's the IPs they've left languishing. Hasn't been a new Kid Icarus in a very long time. I don't imagine there will be, but there hasn't been one in a long time. Star Fox, I'm sure there's loads. Anyway, that was the developer direct. Outside of that, there were a couple of other updates. So Phantom Blade Zero got a Year of the Snake trailer, but really this was more of an excuse for them to show off a pretty cool boss fight. This game's looking insane. I'm just going to jump straight into what's supposed to be gameplay, but I'm like, what are the buttons? What buttons am I pressing that's making any of this happen? There is a lot of Sekiro here, but there's also a lot of, like, nothing else that I can think of, really. So you've got this boss that's essentially 7 enemies at once, but only one of them is the real boss. You can see the one with the blue glowing eyes, the real guy. That's who you should be fighting. So a lot of this boss fight is kind of cutting down his extras, his ads, but then also dealing with their gang up move, where they all sort of form a circle around you and then all try to stab you at once. And it's a bit rinse and repeat. They have that move is pretty cool. I do like that. It's kind of his phase 2 is really interesting. I'm gonna skip ahead to phase 2. Oh yeah, he can resurrect them as well. Of course he can. Anyway, phase 2 is once you've dealt him his final blow, they kind of just swap roles, which is pretty cool. So instead of the one guy controlling 6 other guys, it's now whatever remaining guys are left are now controlling the boss, and he's sort of like a puppeteer, but or a puppeted thing, but like if you've ever seen like the stage rendition of like Peter Pan or something like that, that's kind of what's going on here. Somebody fucked up the stunt work, and now he's just sort of flailing all over the place. That's a pretty cool idea for a boss, and it feel like he's going to be a bit of a nightmare to fight. Anyway, that's pretty great. We still don't have a release date for this game. I'm just going to skip to the end of the trailer because I don't think they say anything about it. Nice, right in the eyeball. What I assume is an eyeball. The release date will be announced. The release date will be announced this year. Not that the game will come out this year. Just that there'll be a release date this year. Anyway. That's a pretty cool sword. So that's the sword I think you get for beating that boss, and then this was the weapon set he was using during the boss fight. It's got this really cool ranged kind of pinwheel thing going on. Anyway. Moving on from that, also announced during the week is Over the Hill. It's a complete change of tone. Over the Hill is from the same people behind Art of Rally, which is this kind of lo-fi, kind of isometric rally game. I don't really like racing games, but I liked Art of Rally. It was pretty cool. Mostly because it wasn't really a racing game, I suppose. Anyway, Off the Road is much slower paced. It's not really a racing game. It's kind of more of a, I guess, kind of an expedition type thing, bit of an exploratory thing. You can see there's multiple trucks, so it is a co-op game. It's not clear yet if you can play it single player or if the intention is for you to play it single. Over the Hill, I said Off the Road, sorry. Over the Hill is what it's called. Currently it's wishlist only on Steam. It may make its way to other platforms. I don't think Art of Rally is available off. I think it's only on the PC, but I'm not sure. Anyway. And then a game that was initially announced in 2004 as being in development and was slated to come out eventually in like 2008, I think, and then was delayed a really long time, and then it was supposed to come out in 2010, and then just everyone forgot about it, and now it's coming out in 2024. So the game is leaning into the fact that it's a fucking 360 game, basically. It's just leaning heavy into that, full on with the kind of mechanics that you would have expected from that time period. 6th of May, Captain Blood. It is kind of hilarious that this game is actually coming out. Now, obviously, it has not been in development since 2004. It was definitely stopped for a long period of time and then resurrected again. But still, it is kind of funny to think that it's been in development for 20 years. Anyway, 6th of May, we'll eventually get to play what will probably be an okay brawlery type game. Anyway, your free update, not free update, your free game on the Epic Game Store this week is Behind the Frame, Find a Scenery. It's a kind of art puzzle game. It's got a narrative going on behind the frame, if you like. Guide brushstrokes and solve a variety of puzzles to help an aspiring artist complete her masterpiece. As her painting starts to take shape, uncover an emotional tale of chance and artistry revealed behind unrelated yet familiar moments. So it's kind of like stories that are happening while she's painting the painting. I think the gameplay element of it is just for you to just paint. Calling it a puzzle game is probably a bit of a misnomer. Anyway, that's Behind the Frame. It's decent. I liked it. Anyway, moving on. Monthly games refresh. Game Pass is pretty jam-packed for January. So we've got Sniper Elite Resistance, which is the latest in the Sniper Elite series. I think this is going for more of a, not multiplayer necessarily, but more of a co-op thing. And I think it's sort of going down the old Hitman style thing of just like bespoke missions rather than like, I think there is an overarching story, but the overarching story is just World War II. Basically, I don't think there's much else to it. But hey, if you're feeling pent up and want to shoot some Nazis, in high definition, shoot them between the testicles. I think that's this game. I think Sniper Elite's the game that does the X-ray thing and you shoot the guy in the balls. I think that's that game. Anyway, very funny. Lonely Mountain Snow Riders is this low poly skiing extreme sports type thing. It's already out as far as I'm aware. Orcs Must Die Death Trap is a multiplayer focused Orcs Must Die. Citizen Sleeper 2, a brand new game, sequel to the original Citizen Sleeper. The original was a really good tabletop. It's a really good tabletop role-playing game as a video game. It's a really weird way to put it, but very good story. Citizen Sleeper 2 looks like is continuing the trend. Eternal Strands, I think this is from former BioWare anyway. I'm not sure if they're Dragon Age or Mass Effect, but it looks like a pretty decent action-adventure type thing. Far Cry New Dawn, I think, is Far Cry 5 DLC. So this is set after the events of Far Cry 5. A nuclear bomb has gone off. And it's not post-apocalypse exactly, because these are like tactical nukes, so it's not like that bad, but still pretty bad. Gigantic Rampage Edition. Don't know what that is. It looks like a kaiju thing, but then there's also human-sized enemies. Shady Part of Me is a puzzle platformer, as far as I'm aware. Starbound is a bit Spiritfarer, but it's in space and nowhere near as sad. Flock is a kind of a cozy animal collecting game. Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess. I'm a little worried that this is on Game Pass so soon. So this is from Capcom, came out last year. I thought it was really good. And critical reception was also very good for it, but I don't think it sold very well. It's a bit of a tower defense kind of thing. It's kind of a weird combination. So it's part tower defense in that you have to protect the Shrine Maiden as she makes her way, as she does her pilgrimage stuff and purifies the path of the goddess kind of thing. But at the same time, you are placing other like allied units. You know, you can set like archers about the place. You can set spearmen to kind of protect a little bit closer. You got a sumo wrestler who can like draw in aggro. You've got guys who have like proper rifles and stuff like that. Healers, characters that can slow down enemies and stuff like that. There's like a strategy element to it rather than just wade in and hope for the best. And that's part of it too. That's the other half of the game, which is it's also a brawler kind of game. That level of combat's not super deep. The much deeper level is like leveling up your allied units and placing them strategically and managing all of that, and then managing the flow of enemies, so you have somebody as a bulwark and stuff like that. I thought it was really good, and looks really good as well, because they did a lot of photogrammetry of miniatures, so everything looks really, really nice, really good textures. But yeah, it being on Game Pass so quickly it's a little worrying. I think it didn't do great. Magical Delicacy is a kind of lifestyle sim thing, but you make. It's like cooking. It's Stardew Valley. I know I always say it's like Stardew Valley, but it kind of is. It's like Stardew Valley, except you're cooking instead of a farmer. It's a similar idea. Chia, I think we played Chia on the channel a while ago. It's a bit of a kind of like a sandbox game. It's set in the area of New Caledonia, which is a country I was completely unfamiliar with until I started playing the game. It's actually a real place. My ignorance is showing. It does have a really cool body jumping mechanic. So your main character can jump into other animals, and then you take on their abilities. You jump into a bird, you can fly, you jump into a fish, you can swim, and so on. But you can also jump into inanimate objects. So you could jump into a rock and then yeet yourself across the map. But in mid-flight, you can jump out of the rock and then jump into a bird to take you further into the base, or fly as the bird out into the ocean, then jump into a shark and fly a little bit, or swim a little bit further, and that kind of thing. That is really cool. The rest of the game is okay, but that part's interesting. The gimmick is good. In the case of the Golden Idol, we did a full Let's Play on the channel. It is a very good deduction puzzle game. So, Game Pass for January, pretty good. Pretty good. What is gigantic? Premium definitive release of the original. Oh, it's a MOBA. Gross. So it's a 5v5 MOBA. Team-based multiplayer experience. So yeah, abilities. Team up with 4 other players. Control the objectives. Take down the opposing team's mighty guard. Oh yeah, I think I do remember this. So it is 5v5, but nobody controls the kaiju, basically. The kaiju are just a reflection of how the fight is going, more than anything else. So if like if blue team is dominating orange team or whatever, then the 2 monsters fighting each other, it will look like the blue monster is dominating the orange monster. That's like, I think that's the way it works. And shady part of me, I wasn't sure what that is. An emotional dreamlike journey, artistic direction, traveling void, girl in her shadow, emotional struggles through surreal dreamscapes across a touching narrative. Oh, just doesn't tell me what kind of fucking game it is. I have a feeling it's like Limbo. I think it's Limbo. And then Sniper Elite Resistance. Where was that? Sniper Elite Resistance turns the attention of the award-winning series towards a hidden war far from the front lines, deep within the heart of occupied France. Bring a friend. The full campaign can be experienced. They don't. Yeah, again, they don't really lean into it. I think it's just a continuation of the story, but you're in occupied France instead of. I think the other Sniper Elite games were like behind enemy lines most of the time. And I guess occupied France is technically behind enemy lines, but I meant like Germany, essentially. Anyway, those are some of the games you can play soon, and in case of a few of them right now if you wanted to. But what if you wanted to play something right now? You can play Ender Magnolia, Bloom in the Mist. So this is a sequel, follow-up to Ender Lily's Quietus of the Night, which is a really interesting side-scrolling combat game. Ender Magnolia kind of continues it. You kind of collect these fallen heroes, if you like, and they kind of join your team as like kind of like a stand, I guess, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure type thing. You kind of swap between them in combat, depending on what their abilities are. They might help you out in different circumstances and what have you. I think you have to fight them first before they'll join the team, but as far as I'm aware, it is a specific number of specific characters that join your team. It's not like every enemy can become a party member. Like they're specific characters. Anyway, art direction is really nice. I never got very far in Ender Lilies because it's hard, and Ender Magnolia is probably going to be just as hard. But I did like it, so I think I might try to get into Ender Lilies again. Anyway, that's Ender Magnolia, Bloom in the Mist. That may have came out last week instead of this week. I'm not sure. I think it was last week on PC and this week on console. Hell's Gate. Hell's Gate was previously in early access and now has its 1.0 release. The easiest way to describe Hell's Gate is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, but you can hit people. So it's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. You do a bunch of tricks to build up combo multipliers or damage multipliers, and then hit somebody with it, and you'll do extra damage depending on how many tricks you had done up until that point. So it's a roguelike kind of thing, so it's kind of Hades, but Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. When I played the demo, I found it a bit messy. Because you're being attacked constantly and also trying to do tricks at the same time, it just felt like, should I be taking out these enemies instead of doing the tricks? But I need the tricks to actually have the damage to take them out. It's like chicken and egg kind of thing. It's like, which do I do first? Because I'm not entirely sure here. Anyway, it's now out of early access. As I usually do, I kind of wait until games are out of early access before I check in on them. So I'm going to check in on it and see if it's any good now. Or if I feel any different about it, I suppose. Sin Duality, Echo of Ada. Ordinarily, I don't really bring up extraction type games because ordinarily they're awful griefing avenues, essentially. Extraction games in particular are really bad for griefing. So ordinarily I wouldn't go into it, but I kind of like the idea of this kind of the mech combat stuff and this AI thing that follows you around as well, and helps you out. So I'm looking into it as the developer has mentioned that there is going to be a single player option, or an offline option, so you won't have to deal with griefing assholes, basically, which is the entire reason why I would be against the game. There are still AI agents, drifters, I think they're called in the game. So there's still NPCs that are going to be around the place that will try to steal your shit, but it won't be human assholes who will try to steal your shit. That's the plan, anyway. But right now, that single player element isn't in it, or at least you can't play the full game solo. There's a couple of bespoke missions you can play solo, but the core game of going out into the zone and collecting your shit and getting out of there, that's still open to online. Anyway, moving on from there. Mark of the Deep. Mark of the Deep is PC only. It's got this it's kind of Hades but pirates. I know that's a bit dismissive of the game, but that's kind of the vibe I was getting from it. As far as I'm aware, it's not a roguelike. I think it's more of a Souls type thing. So it's more of it's a corpse running mechanic instead of the roguelike kind of just start over. But I do like its art, even if it is very Hades. I like Hades' art, so it's got that going for it. Again, I have played the demo and wasn't wowed. But the thing about a lot of demos is that they only show you the early part of the game, and in games that have deep combat systems, you never really get the full vibe in the early part of the game. Anyway, so we'll probably check it out again now that it's it's actually released. Anyway, I'm gonna move on. These next two ports. So Final Fantasy VII, I'm gonna just look directly at the camera because I don't want to see anything on the screen. I still haven't played it. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth ported over to PC. PC system requirements are actually pretty manageable, for the default settings or the recommended settings even. Ultimate settings, epic settings, or whatever. You're gonna need a pretty beefy PC, but otherwise you can get a pretty good, almost comparable PS5. If you have a PC that's comparable to a PS5, I guess. Can't say anything about the game because I haven't played it. I assume it's very good, and I hope it's very good when I do eventually get around to play it. I'm not looking. Okay. And then last one, Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles Remaster. Why? Why? I can't believe you've done this. So, this was originally a PS1 game, and you would think games that normally get remasters, this is a kind of, hey, they're getting a remaster because they were good, right? No. This is pure nostalgia bait. I played a shit ton of this game. It is not a good game, but I played it a lot. I don't know why. There's something about it that meant I just really wanted to play it. I think it's deflecting mechanic, because it is essentially deflect the game. But yeah, if you've never played it before, just stay away. Just stay away. It's not a good game. It's a bad game. You will get pissed off. You will be frustrated. If it is a case of nostalgia bait for you, you might get pulled in. But you'll quickly realize it's like, wow, I must have been a really stupid child because this game is terrible. I'm still probably gonna get it. Fuck. But there's a lot of happy memories, we'll say, associated with the game. And a lot of the sound effects are buried deep in my brain. But no, objectively, this is a bad game. It was bad when it came out. It's still bad. So PSA, if you've never played it, don't. And if you've already played it, well, how strong is the nostalgia for you, basically? Anyway, moving on. Unfortunately, though, it is now time to talk about the worst part of video games, the video game industry. So, some bad news. I mean, it's pretty much always bad news in industry bullshit, but sadder news, I guess. I don't know how to put this. Anyway, disappointing news. Let's go with that. Celeste Studio cancels 2D exploration game. Kind of glad they cancelled it just for that awful word. Anyway, Earthblade nearly 4 years after its announcement. So extremely okay games. These are the people behind Celeste and Towerfall. They announced the cancellation of Earthblade, saying that this is a huge, heartbreaking, and yet relieving failure. So it was originally shown off in 2021 during, again, Summer Game Fest or Opening Night Live. I can't remember which one. Which is just a teaser. The year after, they had a little bit of gameplay. It looked like it was going to be a side-scrolling Metroidvania type thing. And it was expected to arrive last year. Obviously, that didn't happen. There was a delay at some stage in March to say that we don't really know when it's coming out. But that they were still excited to work on it now. More on that in a second, because that may have not been true at the time. Anyway, today, however, the studio has announced Earthblade is no more. There's a pretty lengthy post up over on the website itself that goes into a bit more detail, but Maddie Thorson, the studio director, basically said this was kicked off because of a disagreement over the IP rights of Celeste. So it was between herself, another director, and a founding member of Extremely OK Games, who was their kind of art director on Celeste and Towerfall. Pedro Medeiros was on the other side, and basically there was some disagreement over the IP rights associated with Celeste. They haven't gone into what that disagreement was, so they're keeping that to themselves, just to say that it has been resolved, and the result has been that Pedro Medeiros has left the company to work on their own game. Both parties agreed in the end that we should go our separate ways. So whatever the fallout of the IP rights thing has resulted in their art director leaving. And at the same time, it also prompted a bunch of other creatives to leave the team as well. So their headcount has been diminished significantly. So whatever was going on there was some kind of serious shit. So anyway, when they decided that had all been sorted, they went back to look at Earthblade to say like, you know what, I don't actually want to work on this anymore, kind of thing. So Earthblade was not as far along as one would expect after such a protracted development process. They did feel that the game had a lot going for it, but the passion to continue development isn't there. Noel and I also began to reflect on how the game has felt for us to work on day by day, and realized that this has been a struggle for a long time. Sure, working on one project for so long is bound to become a slog, but this feels like a deeper problem. Celeste's success applied pressure on us to deliver something bigger and better with Earthblade, and that pressure is a large part of why working on it has become so exhausting. So their expectation pressure, because Celeste just blew up and became its real industry darling, that they felt that they needed to surpass it, when up until then, they had always worked on really small games. Like, Celeste is not a big game. Towerfall is not a big game, whereas Earthblade was shaping up to be a pretty big thing. They were clear to point out that Pedro is not to blame about this. The IP rights issue is not to blame for the cancellation of Earthblade. Take it that what you will. But they did stress that, they don't want the community going after them about it, because there's no animosity on their end, and just don't be a dick, basically. Pedro isn't to blame for this. The split with him has given us the clarity to see that we have lost our way and the opportunity to admit defeat. I feel many ways about it, but one big feeling is undoubtedly relief. So it does feel like developing Earthblade was becoming not enjoyable anymore. And since they have full power to stop that, they did it. Not everybody has the ability to say, hey, my job's not fun anymore, I'm just going to not do it. Or I'm just going to go focus on the part of it that I actually enjoy. So when you do have that ability, you should really take it anyway. So we're planning to refocus ourselves back to smaller scale projects. We are happy to return to our roots and reclaim some joy in our creative process and see where that takes us. So it's the end of Earthblade. We didn't really know a whole lot about the game. It's more like a disappointment that we're probably going to have to wait even longer for something more from Extremely OK Games. Because despite the name of the developer, they make very good games. Towerfall is a lot of fun, and Celeste is an amazing platformer. But yeah, anyway, sometimes projects don't work out, and I guess it's important to realize that and not push themselves through burnout, crunch, and so on. And when they do have the power to do that, you know, it'll be a good case study in the future, I think. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of a good case study in the future, Warner Brothers Games CEO is leaving the company in the wake of Multiverses and Suicide Squad. Well, notice he gets to leave the company. He's not fired. He's not laid off. No, he just gets to leave. With a nice golden handshake on the way as well. Anyway, David Haddad, CEO of Warner Brothers Games, has announced his departure. It's alleged this is because Multiverses and Suicide Squad did not hit expectations. Talking about expectations, already we know on this channel, at least, executive expectations are always way fucking off in the first place. They just expect number go up, and they never look at the industry as it is right now, the price of games as they are right now, the sheer saturation of the market of different types of games and so on, and your own fucking marketing. Anyway, Warner Bros. Has announced that there is no intention currently to sell off the games division. I'm not sure if there ever was a rumor about that, but okay, good to get in front of that one. David Haddad saying before he departed, "I am so proud of everything we've accomplished together at Warner Bros." Are you? Warner Bros. Games during my time with the company. You're proud of that, are you? You're proud of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League? You're proud of tanking your best developer with Rocksteady? You're proud of that? Okay. Alright. So citing things like Multiverses, things like Suicide Squad. So Multiverses, when it was in open beta, was pretty popular for a while. And then like 3 months later or so, interest started to dwindle on it. Mostly because it was a buggy mess. But I mean, it is meant to be a beta. Anyway, it quickly lost steam on Steam. And they pulled the game, which they really shouldn't have done. That was a big mistake. But they pulled the game and then came back, retooled it. Allegedly, they didn't. They put a story in. That's kind of the only real change. From what I can tell, that's the only change they made. Brought it back. It's moderately popular, but not amazing. Suicide Squad was... We've been over how bad Suicide Squad was. It was an incredible flop. An incredible mishandling of studio. What should have been a slam dunk for them was a piddling fart of a game. But yeah, he gets to be let go, or not let go. He gets to leave. He gets to walk away. It'll be funny if somebody hires him for a similar position, because look at his track record. They'll probably just look at Hogwarts Legacy money and go, yes, more of that. And that's, unfortunately, that's probably what will happen. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of not meeting expectations, EA warns investors of slowdown after EA Sports FC and Dragon Age underperform. So this was from an earnings call from EA, which is largely where they're supposed to tell the truth because it's illegal to lie to their investors. But they do find ways to dance around these things anyway. They're warning their investors that Q3 will be not as good as they were expecting. EA Sports FC and Dragon Age Veilguard did not meet expectations. It's kind of hilarious to say EA Sports FC didn't meet expectations, because looking into it, it's like single-digit miss. It's nothing. It's fucking margin of error is what that is. Anyway, Dragon Age the Veilguard is a little bit more. So about 1.5 million players bought the game when it came out initially. That is almost 50% less than what they were expecting. They were expecting somewhere close to 3 million. Not quite 3 million, I think is the deal. Why? It's a franchise that's been to sleep for a very long time, and the last two entries, in fact, of the 3 games that had come out, the 2 of those entries were not really that well received, so I don't know why they were expecting it to do so well. As we can talk about fucking executive expectations anyway. So that's down, allegedly. They don't talk about, hey, we'll take a cut to our salary to offset that. No, I'm gonna keep paying myself way too much money. EA remains confident in the company's long-term strategy. What the fuck is their long-term strategy? Just keep doing the same thing and hoping FIFA rescues them. That seems to be it. They're planning to launch more of its iconic franchises. They just said they're not going to do it under Dead Space. Launch more of their iconic franchises, probably Mass Effect 5 is all they're really talking about. Franchises, plural? I don't think so. Franchise, singular. Could possibly say Battlefield, but I don't think Battlefield has ever really stopped being a thing. They just release new ones. I wouldn't really call it a launch exactly. Anyway, last year EA demonstrated its approach to operational discipline by spending $125 million to make 5% of its workforce redundant. Good job. Maybe look into that. Maybe look into that's why there's an underperformance. No. Can't be my fault. Alright, some slightly better news. Palworld developer Pocket Pair has established a dedicated publishing division. So, the Palworld guys, the Pokemon with Guns guys, Pocket Pair have established their own publishing division, and they're intending to offer funding opportunities, development assistance, and publishing support for indie developers and small studios, so people like them, and smaller, essentially. And they already have an agreement with Surgeon Studios, the people behind Tales of Kenzera, to make a short and weird horror title with backing from Pocket Pair. So they already have a game or a developer ready to go. But speaking about their broader ambitions, they're hoping to help developers pursue their dreams, which is a lofty ambition. This is the second kind of indie game that really hit it off. Palworld has done very well, and it was a small developer in the first place. So that means they probably have a lot of money swimming around. And they're giving back to the industry by setting up their own publishing business. There's not a lot of investment money rolling around in the industry right now. So getting independent indie devs money has been very difficult. Just getting AAA, AA guys money has been extremely difficult. Never mind indie devs. So the indie devs are having to sort of look after themselves, which is where Pocket Pair come in. It's also where earlier last year, I think, Inner Sloth, people behind Among Us, started Outer Sloth, which again is a publishing label, to help developers and do that kind of thing as well. So we are seeing a bit more of that. We are seeing a boutique publishers coming up. The people who left Annapurna started their own thing and have sort of taken over Gearbox's publishing. Or sorry, not Gearbox's, Private Division's publishing. We've Cool Down Games that are formerly of the Gearbox. That's where I was getting Gearbox from. Cool Down Games are starting to do publishing for smaller, cozy, comfortable games instead. So we are starting to see that more, which is interesting. Smaller publishers focusing on smaller games because the money for the big games just isn't there. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of money not being there, the psychogeographyist of Disco Elysium's spiritual successors is a gonzo journalism RPG named Hopetown. So you may recall that there was a time last year when essentially 3 different developers came out of the woodwork to say they were all working on spiritual successors to Disco Elysium, and they all kind of said it all at the same day, which is really weird. Anyway, so this isn't the XXX Night Shift guys, and this isn't Argo Tulik and Olga Moskovina's game, because they're barred from working on anything still by court order. So this is the other one. This is from Longdew, and they have named their game Hopetown, and they are planning to launch a crowdfunding campaign to fund it, which is interesting because they are getting funding from the XXX Night Shift guys as well. So it does look like it's going to be a co-funded thing. Anyway, contributors to the project include Piotr Sobolewski, almost certainly said that name wrong, Disco Elysium's system design director, and Longdew promises that there are more extraordinary talents set to be unveiled as part of the crowdfunding launch, so I guess they're holding back some news on that, but it will allegedly include people from Bungie, Rockstar, and Brave at Night, who are responsible for Yes, Your Grace. You'll be playing a rogue journalist who's a bit of a... It's a bit of a Hunter S. Thompson thing, appears to be what they're going for. That appears to be the deal. Anyway, if you want a primer on the messy events that transpired in the Fallout Disc Elysium is released, like, I don't think there is a handy primer. It's such a fucking mess. But there's a great editorial here from Nick Rubin who basically said, it's got everything. People being dicks to each other. People being cosmic mega dicks to each other. People being ensorcel turbo dicks to each other. The works. It's such a fucking mess. The amount of backstabbing going on, incredible. We've done a couple of streams of this weekly news recap where we talked about the Disco Elysium stuff. I'd encourage you to look up the People Make Games video. It's on YouTube. People Make Games, Disco Elysium. I think there's 2 parts to it. It's long and it's really complicated, but there's a lot of... maybe complicated is not the word. Messy. Messy is the word. But if you're interested, it's something to check in on. Anyway, last thing we'll talk about. So the GDC survey, the Games Industry State of the Industry survey. This is something Game Developer, this website, and GDC, Game Developers Conference, kind of do before the the Developers Conference kicks off. So it kicks off in March this year, near the end of March. So ahead of GDC 2025, they have this survey. They do it every year. So this time, there's over 3,000 game developers and industry professionals. Margin of error is about 2%. Pretty good. So these are kind of highlighting a couple of things that came up out of the survey. The main survey itself is available. Well, the link will be in the paste bin. I haven't managed to get through the whole thing myself because it is quite big. Anyway, but some headlines, if you like. So layoffs continue to ripple through the industry. It's not exactly news, but the exact percentage is kind of interesting. 11% of developers reported being laid off in the past year. That is literal decimation. Did not go well for the Romans when they did it. It was not good for morale, and it will not be good for morale in the games industry either, but it's kind of interesting that it's like almost literally decimation, like 10%. Anyway, what's even more kind of like obvious, really, when you think about it, but it's kind of funny to see it written out, but the narrative field saw the biggest impact, 19% of respondents, while as the business and finance saw the least reported layoffs. I wonder why. I wonder why they left the business and finance people alone and they got rid of the creative people. 4% reported being laid off due to their studios closing down. This is arguable whether that counts as a layoff or not, but I suppose it does. As the reasons given for why they were laid off, restructuring was the biggest one. We saw that trotted out every time, like corporate jargon. We're doing a restructuring. That was their random excuse for why they had to lay off a bunch of people. Declining revenues, I guess, is fine. It's a little more honest, maybe. Market or industry shifts is just bullshit. It's just we don't want to tell you. We just don't want to tell you that we want more money. That's it. At least the declining revenue one is sort of, we want more money out of you. But even worse, 19% were not given a reason at all for why they were laid off. Couldn't even be arsed to make up a reason. Alright, talking about generative AI in the workplace, most developers are hesitant about it. So developers believe that generative AI is having a negative impact, 30%. Now, obviously the opposite of that is 70% think the opposite is having either a positive or no impact. Maybe no impact is probably more prevalent anyway. But this is a 12% increase from last year, so it's a fairly significant increase of people thinking it's having a negative impact is what we're looking at there. More than half of developers surveyed say that they work for companies that have already implemented generative AI, and a third of them personally use it. Again, this will shock nobody. Respondents within business and finance roles use it the most, followed by production, team leadership, community, marketing, and PR. Guess who wasn't mentioned anywhere in any of those numbers? The creative team. The actual engineers, the narrative, the art directors, environment artists, musicians, voice artists. None of them were in there. Nope, just business and production. Cool. Interesting one, PC game development skyrockets. So 66% of developers are reporting that they are working on games for PC. That's climbed up Sorry, that was last year. This year it's 80%. So again, another significant jump. So most developers going to GDC or surveyed for GDC are working on a PC game. Either that's a PC port of another game they're working on, or just straight up it's a PC game, which is pretty significant. There was no specific reason given for why there's such a big jump. But one pointed out is that when they were talking about platforms that they're developing for, the other option was ticked a lot, and people added Steam Deck. So it seems potentially that Steam Deck is a pretty big motivator for people to work on PC ports. 44% of them wrote in the Steam Deck as a platform they're interested in. This was when they were given the option for PlayStation, Xbox, PC, Nintendo, and so on. And then randomly web browser games are starting to see a resurgence, so... How weird. That's a name I've not heard before in a long time. Anyway, a third of AAA devs are working on live service games. It's pretty fucking disappointing anyway. 33% noted that they are working on a live service title. 41% expressed that they were not interested at all on working on a live service title, and that is an increase from last year. Developer opinions on the value of live service games largely vary. On the positive side, developers recognize the financial and community building benefits of the strategy. None of that is like particularly great for just the game being good, but okay. Whereas those who express concern with the declining player interest, creative stagnation, predatory practices, microtransactions, and the risk of burnout, those are all pretty bad negatives. I feel like you can get community building without creative stagnation, predatory practices, and burnout. Anyway, and then a pretty big one was obviously oversaturation, which we're all really well aware of at this point, except it seems executive side don't seem to be aware of the oversaturation. Coming from funding, as we know, industry funding has been down the last 2 or 3 years. Most games are financed through self-funding, so you're finding that developers are having to take out loans and stuff like that to fund the games themselves. More than half of survey respondents reported that they have put their own money into funding the creation of their game. That's nearly double the next most option, which is project or publishing deal. So that's getting a publishing partnership deal, which is at 28%. So significantly, developers are opting to just go it alone, as opposed to trying to get a publishing agreement, which is interesting. Those reported that they had utilized self-funding appeared to be a good option, as 89% of responses listed it as being at least somewhat successful. So, what is it? Somewhat successful, successful, very successful kind of thing. The co-development contracts were next up, with about a third of people finding satisfaction with it. Accelerators were seen as the least viable option, which is not surprising, because they just don't get the same level of attention. 43% of respondents called accelerators not successful at all. This was then followed by venture capital, 32%, and crowdfunding at 31%. So crowdfunding seems like it's not great, which is probably bad news for the long-due people. Anyway, climate change impacts a notable number of developers. So this was kind of an interesting one. It didn't really come up in the last couple of surveys, but there have been a number of like serious floods and storm events in 2024 in particular. And then obviously there's the wildfires going on in California. California has a fairly sizable game developer location. So 73% of respondents referenced floods, hurricanes, storms, and other water-related events. It's 16% of developers say that they or their company have been impacted by natural disasters. So of that 16%, 73% of respondents reference floods, storms, extreme heat, and so on. So, I mean, 16% is still pretty big. It's a sixth. It's almost a seventh. Sorry, it's almost the sixth. It's more than a seventh and less than a sixth. Anyway, it's pretty significant. You should maybe look into that. Anyway, the full report, if you want to go to it, you can go to Game Developer and find the report, or I'll put it in the paste bin. Anyway, the last thing we're going to take a look at is the Video Game History Foundation is set to make its digital library available to the public next week. Now, it says the public. It's not clear which public is, if it's going to be geo-locked or not, that kind of thing. But the Video Game History Foundation has this collection of it's essentially digitized like promotional material, digitized video game magazines, concept arts, design documents, like a lot of paper stuff from video game history. But January 30th, they're going to be opening digital access for people. Never before seen game development materials, artwork, press kits, promo materials, and iconic video games. More than 1,500 out-of-print video game magazines. It's going to be a real trove of print media, essentially, for video games. If you weren't around at the time, you may not know about video game advertisement in the late 90s and early 2000s. It was bonkers. The fucking shit they got away with. Some of the ads they put out for the game be like, the game is nothing like this. The like titillation, we're just gonna get a woman with big tits and have her just show the game, and it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? They were hilarious ads, it has to be said. Incredibly tacky, completely tone jarring stuff going on. Some of those ads are amazing. And then articles written in video game magazines again at the time. They're going to make a good indication of where the industry was going, what the industry was hurting for at the time, and that kind of thing. And just how games were presented, really, in general. Because it's changed. The opinion of the video game industry has changed since then. Over time. And has gone from this niche, nerdy thing to a big billion-trillion-dollar industry that's been taken over by private equity. Like, it would be good to see the trajectory. I'm mostly interested in seeing the big fucking YouTube essays that are gonna come out of this thing. Anyway, so look for that next week, 30th of January. We'll leave... I don't know which game. I'm not going to leave Final Fantasy because I won't be able to actually look at the screen then. So I guess we'll leave Ender Lilies. Or not Ender Lilies. Ender Magnolia. Anyway, that's your news for the 20th to the 26th of January 2025. The Xbox Developer Direct is pretty interesting. Getting a Ninja Gaiden wasn't on the bingo card. I thought Team Ninja was all in on Neo at this point. So it's interesting to see them go back. The Ninja Gaiden remaster, Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. I have a feeling, and this is not just myself, there's other people in the streamers and other journalists saying something similar, that the Ninja Gaiden 2 remaster was probably a pitch piece for Ninja Gaiden 4 to kind of show Koei Tecmo that, hey, maybe the original team mightn't be here anymore, but we can do it. We can do another Ninja Gaiden, give us a shot. And to prove it, here's a remaster of one of the good Ninja Gaiden games. It seems they were happy about it because they gave them the green light to go ahead and do Ninja Gaiden 4. They are working with Platinum Games. There was concern that we didn't really know what Platinum are working on since Hideki Kamiya had left. There was the assumption that they were working on an Astral Chain 2 for Nintendo Switch 2. We're not too sure about that one because the original director may not be with them anymore. We didn't know if Square Enix were coming back to them because Babylon's Fall was so bad. I don't think that was Platinum's fault. I just think let's launch a live service game that isn't all that appealing. Anyway, so it looks like they're working on this. This is what they've been working on. They've been working on Ninja Gaiden 4. Seeing more of Expedition 33 is, yeah, I'm playing it. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it when it comes out. South of Midnight, I don't have an Xbox, so I can wait. I can wait for it to come out. It's intriguing. I find it interesting, but I'm not like salivating waiting to play it like I am with Expedition 33. Doom of the Dark Ages, I'm more concerned than I am excited. Some of the changes are a little worrying. I'm still thinking it'll be fun, but I'm wondering if it's still going to reach the heights of Doom 2016, which is almost perfect. I guess we'll see. Doom Eternal was not as good, in my opinion. I still liked it. I still like Doom Eternal, but it was definitely not as fun, I guess we'll say, as Doom 2016. I don't know. It was fun in a different way, but I guess that's not what I was expecting from it. Anyway, Phantom Blade Zero continues to be very impressive looking, but we still don't know when the fucking game is coming out. Over the Hill is a very small trailer, but it did look like cozy and interesting, and I did like Art of Rally. Big bumper Xbox Game Pass for January. It's a lot of really interesting games, and a lot of them are day one Game Pass games. So if you are subscribed to it, this should be a good month for you. New releases. I'll just PSA. Just don't get Jedi Power Battles. Just don't do it. If the nostalgia is too strong for you, I guess I can't help you. But if you've never played it, just let it go. Don't bother. It's not worth it. It's not worth the frustration. Anyway, industry bullshit. Line of the survey results from GDC. Now again, it's it's not the entire game industry they're talking to, and it's a small window into it. But I think they are interesting statistics and interesting responses that are coming from the survey. The Warner Bros. CEO getting to just golden handshake, walk away from a massive mess that he left is, of course, why should I be surprised at these kind of things? But still, they can still find ways to just get very frustrated about how the developers were treated versus how the guy who made the decisions is treated. It's extremely frustrating. Anyway, and that video game history archive will be really, really cool. I'm really actually looking forward to that being open and to see if it's actually accessible in Europe, because I really hope it is. Because I feel like it's going to be accessible only in the US, but we'll see. Anyway, that is your news for the 20th to 26th. Update on the rest of the channel. It's the same as last week's. Last week on the channel, I was off stream playing a lot of tabletop games. So most of my evenings were spent rolling dice instead of pressing buttons. So I actually haven't played a video game in ages now. Anyway, but yeah, that was good. I liked rolling some dice with some friends. But that did mean that I didn't have time to do any streams. So it's a slightly less tabletop role playing this week, so I should be able to fit them in. And we'll get to Hollow Body, and we'll finish Hollow Body, and then we can move on and play something else. Right, anyway, I'm gonna head off. Have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you hopefully before the next weekly news recap, but if I don't, the next weekly news recap. Right, have a good one.